Hello, welcome to lesson 10 of the tutorial series on the design and implementation of Soccer League Transfer Portal using server-side Blazor. I am Benjamin Fadina. In this lesson, we shall be implementing the change password page. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is to ensure that my SQL Server service is running. So, I'm looking for the SQL Server instance called the Bukoloa. It is running. So now that the service has been confirmed to be running, the next thing I'm going to do is to start Radzen. So I'll search for Radzen and I'll click on it. Then I'll double click on Soccer League Transfer app to open it. I'll close. Now what I want to do is to implement change password page. And the closest pages that come close to what I have in mind are the edit users page and the hard users page. I'm going to use the hard users page to implement the change password functionality. Now what I'm going to do is I'll right click on the add users page. I'll say duplicate. So when I duplicate it, I have a copy of the page called copy of hard users page. So I'll now right click on the duplicate page. I'll go to properties. I'll change the name of the page to change your password. I'll click save. Now, before I click save, Radzen is asking whether I want to include the page in navigation. I say yes. I say save. Now, I'll click on the username text box. I'm going to delete it. I'll delete the required validator. And in place of the text box, I'll replace the text box with a label. So I drag and drop the label. And I will change the text property of the label to $user.username. I'm going to leave the password and confirm password controls the way they are, because they are the ones I actually want to uh, configure. I'll click on the password control. I'll go to outline. Okay, sorry. I'm going to leave them the way they are, like I said. Then I'm going to delete the club drop down. And in the place of the club drop down, I'm going to have a label to display the name of the club. I'll go to properties. I will change the text property of the club to user dot club detail question mark. That means if it is not null dot team name. In other words, if the user has an associated current club, display the name of that club. I will delete the email address as well. We don't want users to be able to change their email address. We are going to delete uh, okay. For the email address, let's drag a label. I will change the properties text property to user dot email address. We change the text property of this user roles to your roles. We drag another label called here. Now I called at the beginning of this lesson, call this page change your password. So I go to outline. I right click on the first row under the form. I will select duplicate. Then I right click on the column for second label. I press delete. I right click on the first label. I press delete. Then I replace the first label with heading. Now I will change the name of the heading to change your password. I'll make it heading 1, and I will drag until it is fitted appropriately. Then I'll go to outline. I'll go to page. I'll go to events. I want to the load event. I don't need get club details again. Yes, I still need to create I still need user object on the page, so I'll leave it. I still need this set confirm password. I still need this set user role names property. So on the page, first of all, we'll check the user status to see whether the user has permission to access the page. Then we'll create a new user object called user. We'll create a string variable called confirm password. And then we create a new list of string called user role names. So we do this when the page has loaded. And even though we have the check user status method listed on the page load event, it is not actually implemented yet. So what we'll do is we go to my applications, we go to show application directory for the Soccer League transfer app. We right click on the Visual Studio Solution file, say open. So the application is now open. So I'm going to go to Solution Explorer. I'll go to the Add Users page. So I will open adduser.razor.cs page, which is the code behind file for add users page. I'll click no for inconsistent line in the endings. I'll copy authentication state provider property and check user status method. Then I'll go back to Solution Explorer. I'll look for change your password.razor. I'll expand it. I'll double click on change your password.razor.cs. I will paste. Then I will begin to import all necessary namespaces. Now, all I'm going to do is I just want to see if user is logged in. So here I'm not checking if user belongs to any row. So all I'm checking to see is if user has any claims. In other words, if user is logged in. So if user is logged in, so what am I going to do? Instead of doing nothing this time around, I'm going to get user detail from data store. I'm going to say user is equal to await data dot moik get user by user ID. Now I need to get the user ID. So I'm going to say int, okay, get user detail from the data store. So before I get user detail from the data store, I'm going to say int user ID equals. Now I'm going back to the login page. This was where I stored the user ID in this session manager. I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to do something like this. This time around, I'm going to say get user ID from session manager. Now I'm still going to go to login result.cs and there is this line that I used to inject session storage. So come back, just at the top of the class, inject this session storage, import necessary namespace. Now here, this method would now be changed to await session storage dot get item async, and the item I'm getting is just the user ID. Get item async, you need to specify the type, in which case it's int. So get user detail from data store will now become user equals await on data.moik get user by user ID, passing the user ID as parameter. Then I'm going to generate this method. I will now go to the definition of the method. I will change this to public async task user is equal to new user me go to definition and see. Okay, I'm good. So file user is equal to new user. In fact, this serves my purpose perfectly. So just copy and paste. And all I'm going to do is filter by user ID. So by user one is equal to p dot user ID equals user ID. So if user one is not null, point user one reference to user, return await tax.from result user. So there was something I forgot to do. Go back to definition. Dot include. What are we going to include? Let's go back to the model section. And what we are going to include is the class called club detail. So go to definition. Dot include club detail. Not club details, club detail. Save. So this is our method to get user details. So we are calling that method and check user status. Now let's go back to Radzen. Let's open our application once again. Now let's go back to change your password page. We need to do some kind of reordering here. First of all, we'll promote the initialization, the creation of the new user object to the top of the list. Click done. Now, let's go back to Visual Studio. We need to get user role names as well. We'll say user role names equals await data dot week week get role list. So it's a method we created in earlier lesson. User dot user ID. Now we will go back to Radzen. We'll go to outline, we'll go to page, we'll go to events. We'll create another property, set property. The name of this property will be user roles. To be string, empty string. We initialize it to be empty string. We click done. So after getting user detail from data store, get user roles from data store, then say if user role names dot any. That is if any role name was returned. So check if any role name was returned. So if any role name was returned, so what are we going to do? So what we are going to do is simply we are going to say user roles is equal to the old value of user roles plus, sorry, we need to iterate. So iterate over each role name. So for each string role name in user role names, we are going to say user roles is equal to user roles plus role name plus comma. No, role name plus space. So now we are going to go back to Radzen. We change the text property of this the selected label on the screen. We change it to user roles. Now let's look at the cancel button. So I click on the cancel button, I go to events, and right now it's set to close that dialog. I don't want that. So I'm going to have a method to reset password controls. So this method is public here. Let's make it private. Syntax check user status. So I'm also going to have private async task reset password controls. So I'm going to say user dot password equals string dot empty and user dot something is dropped somewhere. What's the name of this control? So I have user dot password. I have user dot confirm password. User dot oh okay, user dot password is equal to string dot empty. Okay, the variable that is assigned to confirm password is a dollar lowercase confirm password. So I'm also going to say confirm password equals string dot empty. So I go to events. Sorry, I click on cancel button. I go to events. I'm going to undo the click event handler. I'm going to change this from close dialog to execute C#, and it's going to become await reset password controls. Click done. Now let's have a second look at our check user status method. Okay, we put it in a catch block. Try catch block. Now let's go back. Now the last piece of the puzzle is that we want to save. Now the save actually happens in the form submit event. So we go to outline, we select form, we look at the forms, we look at the event attached to it, which is Muyik add new user, which was copied when this form was originally duplicated. So I'm going to create a new method. Method to change user password. So say private async task change user password. So what am I going to do? Now let's put it in a try catch block. notification service dot notify notification severity dot error password change error and error occurred while changing your password. Contact system admin. Display message for 5 seconds. So that's what we have in the catch block. In the change user password, in the try block, I'm going to say await com data dot muyik change user password. So we'll pass in the user object. Then we generate the method stub. Go to definition. Make this one to become public. Asynchronous task. Muyik change user password. The user1 equals context dot users dot first or default, where user ID equals user dot user ID. Now if user1 is not null, which implies that user was found in data store. So what do you do? Excuse me. So what you do, you say user1 dot password equals to user dot password. So here we actually change user password. I will say context dot save changes. So here save changes to data store or database, be precise. So that's that. Now we'll go back to change your password or Trezor. Right now, this method is not called. So how do we call it? We'll go back to Radzen. We'll go back to the submit event for the page. We leave the type as execute C#, but the method that we are going to execute is what's going to change, which is now. change user password. So click done. Now, before we get to run the application, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to go to layout. We'll go to main layout. I'll click on the panel menu. And right now, change user password is not showing. Let me click refresh. So change your password appears. I don't want this redirect to login to appear. I delete it. I'm going to promote change your password to the top. Change it. I'm taking it to the top of the pile. So taking it to the top of the pile. And then I'm going to make it human friendly. Change the text. Change your password, and I click done. Now I'm going to come to Visual Studio. I'm going to put breakpoints in. Check user status. I'm also going to put breakpoints in. Change user password. So it's time for me to now run the project. So I click on run in IIS Express, then I wait. So the application has been loaded. So I'm going to log in as Moik. I type in my current password, which is professor. So I click login. Let me just click continue because there is a breakpoint on login page. So I'm taken to players page. Now let's see what happens when I click on change your password page. A breakpoint is hit, and that's the one set for check user status. So function F10, F10, F10. Do I have any claim as a user? Yes. Does it get my user ID from the data store? Yes, says my user ID is 2. So function F10, does it get my user object? Let's see. Yes, it got my user object. Then does it get my rows? Yes, it got a row, site admin. So just site admin. Let me press continue. But there is an issue here. The issue is that my current role is not displayed. So let's see what we did. So we have, so it's supposed to display user roles. Uh, let's see. So I'm going to stop the application running. So now I go back to change your password. I go to outline, go to this label called your rows. I will select the second label, properties, user roles, okay. Yes. Then I go to the outline, I go to page. Okay, this is where we actually set user roles. I guess we need to promote it up, so let's promote it. And we actually get set user role in check user status, so we promote it up. Before we execute check user status method, so I click done. We run the application again. Application is loaded again. So I log in as Muyik. Password is professor. So I click login. So let me just press continue and see what happens. So let me go to change your password. Fine. My role is displayed as site admin. I don't have any associated club. Now, let me test. The password. Okay, good. Let me test the reset functionality. Okay, good. Now, the last stuff we are going to do is to actually change the password. I'm going to go to change your password or Razor. Okay, there is a breakpoint set in change user password. Okay, before we actually run this method, Let's stop running the application and do some changes here again. So change user password. Let me just say call change user password routine. In data service. Now, after that, display success message. Display success message. How? Notification service dot notify notification severity dot success password change success. You have successfully changed your password. Display the message for 6 seconds. After that, reset password controls. How? Say await, reset password controls. So let's run the app again. So I'll click on running IS Express. Once again, I log in as Muyik. Password is Professor. So I click login. I just press continue here. I'm going to go to change your password. And I'm changing my password from Professor to Ronaldo. So now I click save. When I click save, the breakpoint is it. Now let me inspect the Muyik change user password in the service layer. F11. So I have F10. So one. So what's user1.password now? So 10 F10 F10 F10. Let's do continue. The message is displayed. The form is reset. So as last piece of confirmation, let's check the application database. So I've just clicked on the shortcut icon for Management Studio at the bottom of my screen. So here is Management Studio starting up. So now I'm going to click connect. So Management Studio has connected. Go to my databases, go to my Soccer League DB, go to my tables, and I click on users, I say select top 1000 rows. And oh, okay, you can see for Muyik user ID 2, the password has been changed to Ronaldo. So we have come to the end of the lesson. Thank you for watching.